That was a lovely introduction, and for Christina, who I am such an admirer of, and we were just trying to talk about where we met, and we can't remember because at least I'm aging. But I want to use almost not a bakery term, but a cooking term to describe you, I think, and the people that I meet who I just love seeing the most. I always call them open face sandwiches.
That's such a great one.
Because you're always like this. And I think, like, you know, any time I met you socially, we have not been baking together because, like, breaking news, I really can't. But whenever I've interacted with you or been with you anywhere, there's just so wildly positive, not precious, unpretentious. And I think that combined with your absolute mastery of baking is behind every bit of success you've had in the community you've built. So
I'm an open-faced sandwich. When I talk to my mom, I'm going to be like, Mom, I got the best compliment today.
Yeah.
Open-faced
What would be on your open-faced sandwich, by the way?
Oh, mine would be stacked a mile high. I'm actually a really big fan of open-faced sandwiches because it's like nothing's hiding between the top piece of bread.
No, there's no ambiguity.
You eat with your eyes. You eat with your eyes first. It's a little messy. It's imperfect.
Mm-hmm.
I'm working right now on this loaded baked potato bread that's actually like a pull-apart bread. I know I'm working on it for a Bake Club episode. But so mashed potatoes and potatoes are on the brain. I don't know, maybe it's like a leftover Thanksgiving sandwich, but there's mashed potatoes and it's just stacked a mile high because we were also talking that like Thanksgiving is right around the corner.
And we kind of forgot.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
happening.
I don't know what else has been going on, guys, but we sort of spaced on that. But yes, the open face sandwich, you can just pop your head in and all the joy comes. So milk, but I remember, God, one of the first times I had a milk bar cookie and I just was so, I think this, maybe you all hopefully feel the same, is you have one and you suddenly feel like you're 6, you know? Like you're like, oh, cookie, and suddenly all your cynicism drops away, and it's just like it's such a treat, and so I just want, no, obviously we so much talking about Bake Club during that fun pandemic that we all had, and tell me, I just want to hear more about the day that you decided where you were like, okay, I've been staring at the walls and a spatula, you know, for so long. I'm going to turn on Instagram Live now. But was it? And I'm going to assume it was as much for your needs.
Yeah,
it
was just as selfish
others.
As it was selfless.
Yeah.
I learned so much about myself during different parts of the pandemic, and one of the first things I learned, I always thought I was a baker because I love dessert. I have a sweet tooth. It's totally selfish. I do it because I need to eat cookie dough. That's certainly how I got into the kitchen. Like, I started baking. My mom and my grandmas would bake. And one of my grandmas that I would spend the most time with finally caught on to the fact that the reason the like oatmeal cookie recipe wasn't yielding 24 was because every time she would turn her head, I mean, I would be, I gotta go to the bathroom or like, you know, whatever, so that I could finish eating the dough in my mouth. And she was basically like, she was like a country farm grandma, so she was real firm. She was like, get out, like absolutely not, get out of the kitchen. You're on your own. And so it was a survival of the fittest moment. And so I was like, oh, I bake because I need the cookies. Mm-hmm. And then I thought, oh, I became a baker for a living. I became a pastry chef because I need the cookies, but I also would like to get paid to do it so that I don't have to do anything else.
Money's
I could
great.
just do the thing.
Yeah, big fan.
And it wasn't really until the pandemic that I realized I baked because baking is my conduit to the world. It's my conduit to creating community and making friends. And it's my way to show up for people. I'm actually an introvert. I've learned to not be shy, but really like under the surface, I'm freaking out that I have to go to a wedding or that it's easier to be up here because I just tell myself, I'm just going to hang out with Laura. It's going to be fine. Should we hold hands?
We hold feet. Before we were holding feet, not in a weird way. Maybe
but cookies are like my way of feeling comfortable when I enter into the room. And what I realized during the pandemic was that baking was my way of showing up for people. And I felt like I didn't have I felt like my heart was a little empty and broken because I was like, I don't know who I am because I don't know how to show up for people when everyone is stuck indoors and I don't know, I can't hand someone a cookie. And the other thing that is true about me is when life is great, I bake, and when life is uncertain or scary or boring or like, insert any adjective, I bake. And so I basically one day just decided like, I'll just turn the camera around because this is what I'm doing. I don't know how to show up. I guess I'm just here doing this thing, so I'm just going to do it and see if anyone wants to be a part of it. And just put a video out with my dog Butter and was like, "Hey, is anyone free to bake tomorrow? Do you want to join a club? Like, let's just get real. Like, let's go back to the place for me as a teenager when I was looking for a sense of belonging. The place that I found belonging was joining random clubs that were interesting to me. Like, how and where do you find your people? And so I was like, how do I find my people? I'm feeling lost.
Do you remember like the first, like when people, remember Instagram lives, like, waves and everything. Do you remember some of your first comments? Like, oh my God, I needed this, or my oven burned down.
I was doing it live, so I was just more
really
focused on the baking part of it. But Shannon Salzano,
a little bit of
I know Shannon Salzano, my amazing bake club partner in crime. Every day after 2 p.m., I'd call her and be like, how did it go? Like, was it okay? What happened? Because I just started. I don't remember what happened or what have you. And she'd laugh or she'd say this or say that. Or I'd be like, can you remind me how to go live? Like, which button do I push?
Forgetting.
Because they kept changing. But all the little anecdotal things were true.
And you've done 350 episodes now.
Yeah, we did.
You're like a late night talk show host.
We did every single day at 2 p.m. for like over 100 days. And in a beautiful way, I was like, we could just keep go on forever. But the beautiful thing that we learned was like, over 100 days and more, like life changes, it evolves, we change, we evolve, we acclimate, we expect more, our expectations for ourselves change. And now we host Bake Club every week, every other week, when we're inspired. And it's really fun to show up for people, even though 2 p.m. on a Friday feels like I'm busy. Is like, you know what I mean?
Not too busy for that, honey.
Think about for how many days it was that. Yeah. So this book is really a collection of the spirit of what started Bake Club, but by no means is it like just a yearbook of what happened, right? Like it's a collection of, for me, like the most killer recipes. They're unfussy, they're simple, they're invitations in. And it's just a jumping off point for this, what I think is like the coolest club that you could be a part of.
50,000 members or something? Who's a Bake Club member here?
Do you have a Bake Club card?
That's
if you don't, you can get a cookbook, and on the back of the cookbook is a membership card. But you can also just join online at bakeclub.com.
On the internet.
On the internet.
Can I tell you a sentence I like in the intro to the book?
Quote me.
I'm going to quoth Christina Tosi. I do what I do because the output becomes a really important part of people's lives. It represents goodness, kinship, solidarity, support, an invitation in, an opportunity, a mechanism for magic. And so how much does the activity of baking soothe you or make you feel like that? You're giving all of this to others, but you're saying in any mood or whatever day, is it ritualistic? Is it the simplicity or the complexity, or does it vary?
That's I think a lot about tensions, and I love polar opposites in life. So I love this. The simplicity, complexity is for sure part of it. When I bake, it is for me the ultimate lose yourself, find yourself, which is when I start to bake, I'm in it. I know what I'm baking. I have an intention. I go, and somewhere in it, I lose myself in the process or the complexity, or my imagination is like, "Whoa, what about this? What about that? What about this? What if I added this? If I over bake it, how will I?" My brain just goes into all these tangents, and I let it go. And then at some point, when it's time to taste the dessert, I find myself again. And I don't know. There are a few other ways in life that I know how to lose myself and find myself, but baking is most certainly one of them.
What's your fridge versus your kitchen cabinets like? Are they orderly? Are they sort of empire orderly, or are they kind of flung all about?
Okay, so really fun secret. Christina on the clock, very organized. Like, you can't be a professional pastry chef without being insanely detail oriented to the 10th of 100th of a gram of something. Everything must have its place. there's something so cathartic about going home and just kind of being a hot mess. I mean, I'm organized. I know what's there, but it's not the same me when I'm baking on the clock at Milk Bar. I'm just pulling all my ingredients out and I'm leaving just a trail of sugar or flour. I'm inefficient. So my egg's over here and my measuring cups are
Well, you
over
don't do
there.
that.
Well, it's
I don't
just
know.
the most fun. I mean, I'm clumsy.
Yeah.
I'm all of the things. And those are the moments that make me feel the most like the me that I found when I was a kid learning how to bake. And when I'm a professional doing it seriously, I love the control and the type A of it. And I need both sides of myself. And that's what I am like when I bake at home. I mean, but I also have, in fairness, like giant tubs of flour and giant tubs of sugar.
Like industrial
And,
situations.
I mean, I fill it with the 5-pound grocery store bags of whatever I Instacarted or what have you. But like I run a bit of my home kitchen like a professional kitchen because like I take inventory. I know if I'm going to bake the next day. But I buy things like I don't buy a little thing of oil. I buy the biggest thing of oil that a grocery store will sell me.
and
Because it will go to you.
and they go, here she comes again.
Yeah. But I also have
Chugging up.
kids, and my kids now know how to bake, or they know when something comes out, when they know when the sound of the oven turns on or what have you, and they're wild.
I was going to say, but what do they go for? Do they have, I mean, is it
They're
literally-
kids. I mean, my
like,
3-year-old's like
maximum 4, so they're
licking
grabbing
her hand and just dunking it in the sugar. She doesn't know any better.
And then she just bing, 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 bing.
Yeah, sprinkles are a big deal. So everything is either down low and you're just like you're gonna get done dirty, or it's up high. But they know when anything baking related comes out.
Do they give you constructive feedback from a
Well,
3-year-old?
no, they're like the best and worst because they just think everything's delicious. But my daughter will literally, if I'm working on something savory, she'll be like, I want to help mix. She does the same thing I did with my grandma, which the second I turn my head, I'm like, you can mix, but like this is like a work thing, or be gentle. And the second I turn my head, she's in it, eating whatever it is, or she's trying to pour something into a cupcake pan or what have you.
Like,
And it's pure, but that's what I think baking at home should be. It should be unfussy. It should be messy. It should be joyful. And that's what you find in the pages of this book. And that's what I hope for your home kitchen. Even if you're a really serious type A person, there's a part of you that's messy and relaxed, and lose yourself in it.
Face down in the flour. Yeah, I think that what I think everyone admires about you here, especially me, is in a business, chefing, cooking, baking, that can be so rife with pretension. And show offing, and you didn't do that, and stars, and that face. You are completely the opposite of that. One, that's your natural way of being, but 2, when did you realize that was a currency?
I don't even know that it's a currency. It's just the way.
I know, but it is. It is, because we feel like babies when we eat this, so it is a currency. And it doesn't. You don't have to be mercenary. It's not a mercenary thing going. When did you know it could become a trademark that was unlike so many others?
I feel like being in the food industry is being part of a tribe. Being a pastry chef is being part of a tribe. And sometimes when I spend more time in my home kitchen than I do in like the professional Milk Bar kitchen, I'll go, one of the recipes in this book, there's 2. One's for a brown sugar wafer and one's for a chocolate wafer. And as I was writing the recipe, I wrote it the way that we would normally write it as pastry chefs writing a great recipe for a great cookbook.
Right.
And then there was a part of home me that was like, no, man, we've been doing it all wrong. It's not okay. That stops here. And it's as simple as like you make your dough, and instead of like putting it into a square and wrapping it and chilling it, to then pull it out when it's cold, to let it temper, to like knock on it with a rolling pin to get it to temper, and flouring your counter and working with the dough. And you don't want to overwork the dough, but now there's this flour, and then you go to cut it into a cutout and the dough tears, and it never makes you feel good. And you're like, I'm just not good enough because I'm not doing this right and well. And the reality is you can just make the dough and roll it at the same time between 2 pieces of parchment paper, and just chill that. And then when it comes out, you punch it out and you're done. And so part of it is loving being a part of the pastry chef tribe, and then also being like just challenging the norm, where like you should feel swept away and in a magical palace when you have a beautiful, gorgeous, elegant dessert. But I think great food, including the really beautiful food, it shouldn't make you feel less than. It should make you feel magical and effortless and carefree. And I think that's the one part of the fuss. I love to fuss, but I want to fuss behind closed doors because I just want you to feel like joyful and light and magical. And I don't want you to feel like the food is speaking over you.
Yeah, you
The food should be speaking
what's
to
required.
you and with you as a baby, as the baby reference. But that's the bit. I'm like, no, we're doing it right. But also, it's one of those things where you don't have to take all the credit for all the work that you do, right? Like it should be, you can work really hard, but when you deliver it to the world, it should be like, yeah, this is just the way that it is, and this is how it works. And so I like that effortlessness. I think it's important. And then I'm just a big believer in being really serious about the details when it makes a difference, and not being serious about the details when it's not going to make a difference.
It doesn't matter
Yeah.
at all. Tell me about the first cookie. A lot of you guys probably know this, but like the first cookie you made that you were like, obviously you give it to friends, family, whatever, but you're like, oh, this is what's up.
Oh, well, I can tell you that in my kitchen growing up as a teenager, I'm actually very stubborn and a stubborn learner. And so a lot of how I learned how to bake was I went through this like petulant teenage years where I would be like, how does this recipe know what a good chocolate chip cookie is? And so I just start being like, what happens if you add more salt? You guys probably know what happens. It doesn't taste very good. What happens if I don't add baking powder or baking soda? Well, the cookie doesn't poof if it's powder, or spread if it's soda. But guess what else doesn't happen? It doesn't brown properly. And you don't think about baking powder or baking soda as really helping your baked good or your chocolate chip cookie, if we're using that as an example, give a really nice even color. You want to know what else happens or doesn't happen? It doesn't taste the same because both of those leaveners also add acidity. And of course, you don't think about acid when you're making a great warm chocolate chip cookie, but it really makes a difference. Okay, so what if you just don't add as much flour? I'll tell you what happens. The cookie just bakes flat and the butter falls out because it doesn't have enough to hold on to. Okay, what if I add the flour with the butter? What if I add all the ingredients at the same time? Well, something similar happens. It bakes unevenly and you have these random pockets of things. Okay, well, what if I only mix the butter and the sugar for a little bit? And I just started playing these games to learn cause and effect. So there were a lot of really bad cookies that came out of my home for a very, very, very long time, but all ones that I would be like, got it.
Right.
I'm not ever going to learn that if I read a book. I'll learn it in a different way. But I think the first cookie that came out of my kitchen once I went through all of that, and by the way, every time I'd make one of those cookies, my mom would come home from work and be like, ooh, it's so good. And I'll be like, eye roll,
liar,
teenager, mom, that is not good. And she's like, well, why is it on the counter? And I'd be like,
because I'm ashamed.
It was a dulce de leche cookie. I was like, okay, what if I take this chocolate chip cookie dough, and what if I take this dulce de leche that's sitting in the pantry at home? What is it? Ooh, it tastes like caramel. I wonder what would just happen if I added it to a cookie. I added to a cookie. It ended up getting a little bit cakey because dulce de leche still has a fair amount of water activity and milkiness to it. Tasted really great. And I was like, okay, what if I underbake it a little bit? What if I put a thumbprint in it and put some dulce de leche in a little? And that was the first cookie that I remember eating. I tweaked it the way that I would like on an R&D bench. And I remember when it came out being like, I'm proud. Like it was the first time I made a cookie that wasn't someone else's recipe, that was interesting, that I sort of went at. And the result, I remember being like, this is cool.
Like, ooh.
This is cool. Maybe I'll do it again
something.
tomorrow. Yeah. Maybe this is something.
When did my favorite cookie of yours is the compost, because it's just like such an emotional sort of term. And to us, like, oh God, you know, like the provenance of compost.
I used to work on this island off the coast of New Hampshire. It's called Star Island for anyone. You take a little boat from Portsmouth, New Hampshire. It's like a 30-minute. I had worked in restaurants before, but they would only hire me to work like as the hostess or eventually a server or in Virginia, to be clear also. And this incredible friend that I worked with somehow convinced the people that ran this conference center where there were 800 people that would come and spend the whole week. She convinced them that I was a baker and that they should hire me to be the head baker. And by head baker, I mean only baker. So
Only
I got this job running the bakery portion of this conference center on an island off the coast of New Hampshire. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So, I mean, crash course in bread. My first batch in a giant 120 quart mixer did not rise. And I have never had a batch of bread that has not risen since because it was such a takedown.
Was it that sinking feeling?
But so speaking of like sinking puns, you're on the island off the coast of New Hampshire. So sometimes bad weather comes in and you can't get food deliveries because we would literally get deliveries of food by boat. And when bad weather came in, it came in fast. And as the baker, you're like, I still have to feed these people something for dessert for lunch. And so whenever bad weather would come in, it was tradition on this island to make a cookie called a compost cookie. And it was literally whatever was left in the pantry of this like rustic kitchen. And so every time bad weather came in, it was it was always the compost cookie, but it was like a guessing game to guess what random things we pulled from the pantry shelf and put in the cookie. And that's so much of the menu of Milk Bar, even so much of Bake Club. There are these like threads of life, these recipes that I kind of stick in all my pockets and bring with me. And when we opened Milk Bar, I was like, there will be a compost cookie, but it will be one recipe, and that recipe can't change. But it was always salty sweet, so there was always some sort of like chippy pretzel thing, some sweet stuff, like a bunch of little, the cookie that you make when you don't have enough ingredients to make a single flavor cookie. And then I always loved ground coffee because I thought just a little bit of that, it gave a chew, it gave a little like, what is that moment?
A little zing.
Yeah.
You know, no, it really well done.
Ah.
You nailed it. What in the book, which is over there? I should be like Vanna Whiting this book while we.
It's there.
Oh, it's there. I know, but that's pages. There's a picture I really love. It's what's the mirror? What's a mirror cake called? It's
the chocolate mirror cake. This is where like Shannon and I always, when we're like trying to figure out, I'm like, okay, these are the things I'm vibing on right now, or like these are all the things on my home R&D bench that I'm feeding my family. And every once in a while, Shannon will be like, what about this, what about that? And she was like, what about like a chocolate glazed cake? And I was like, well, fancy pastry chef land, it's not just a chocolate glaze. We know how to make it look so shiny that it's a mirror, literally. And she was like, that sounds great. Just do that. And I had to go back into pastry chef land and be like, how do I do that? And then I start to go like this, like, how do I do that, but in a way that's not fussy? And can we still execute it in a way, and can it land? And it's one of my favorite recipes because you can pour it over in the cookbook, it's over a chocolate mayo cake because mayonnaise is a killer secret weapon in chocolate cake. It's an if you know, you know. But you can pour it over anything, cookies, pie, a cake, cupcakes, and it shines like it's a mirror that you can like almost do your hair in the morning if you need to. Simple ingredients put together the right way.
Tell me about like the recipes. Obviously, all of these are things you've crafted and created and love, but in recreating them or photographing them or packaging them for this book, what were the ones that made you feel like you were 6?
Oh gosh, that's such a great question. The ice cream roll-up cake, which is in the cookbook we have organized from like pantry staples, so like rainbow sprinkles from scratch. Maybe that one. I've never made rainbow sprinkles from scratch until I was an adult. But they're from scratch and they're so easy to make. They're time-consuming, but they're easy to make. And there's a chapter for drop-offable desserts, so like the desserts that you drop off, I don't know, with your coworker if you're trying to make friends, or with your class if you just joined a new class, or your neighbor or what have you, that are like purposefully made to be transportable. There's baking for breakfast. There's daily bread. There is the last chapter is tabletop treats. There's cakes any which way because cakes have so many different ways that they can show up. But tabletop treats. And they're the centerpieces. They're like definitely what you want to bake for Thanksgiving or the December holidays, but they're the things that are moments when they arrive at the table. And the chocolate mirror cake is one, but the other one is an ice cream roll-up cake. And it makes me feel like a kid because it's all of the things. I did not have an ice cream roll-up cake as a kid, but it's a little messy to make. And you roll this cake into a tube as it's warm and hot out of the oven. It's breaking all the rules as a kid. When you're watching someone bake in the kitchen and when you eat it, and I made one the other day and then made an excuse to need to take a picture of it yesterday. And when I start to eat it, not like nothing else, I'm a kid again. Like nothing matters. It doesn't matter. You cover it in fudge sauce. It's delightful. And that's my most kid-like
Like
moment.
McDonald's ice cream cake would be my equivalent.
McDonald's. There you go. There you go.
You're like, wow, treat. And you're like, oh, is it? Is it though? I'm curious about the Bake Club members and if there's folks from the Bake Club who've taught you something, who've blown your mind in some way.
I think the totality of the Bake Club community to date has like humbled me and warmed my heart and taught me to level up on what being a good person is. One, they're incredible bakers. Like the way that you're for those of you that are already members, the way that your brains work, the way that you see ingredients and possibility in your pantry different than the way I see mine, for me is forever inspiring. That's my favorite, just brass tacks part of being a baker and baking in community. But beyond that, it's someone's birthday. They've got a card circulating all around the US. Someone's dad died. You got to check in with her this way. This day is your day. This day is my day. What are we going to do? We got to put together a care package, knowing each other, knowing their families' names, showing up for them. It just levels up on what I think sometimes in this day and age we think is a lost art that's like lost and gone forever. And it's not. Right. It's alive and well. And we don't oftentimes have opportunities to see it, but I see it every single day in Bake Club, and it will drown the tears out of me because it's so beautiful. And I think there's something certainly so altruistic about bakers and baking, even though we might all be like, I love to eat dessert, that's why I bake. Mm-hmm. That's really just like that's just a mask because there's something so much richer and bigger and more beautiful behind it.
God, it feels like a movie.
It really does.
I mean, starring you. Yeah. You're like, great,
I'll be in charge of the food.
It's my time to shine. This is your 8th book. I mean, you run a really getting bigger business, that you do day to day. How do you manage that? You've also got 2 young kids with the 6-year-old, with the fun, do you got to do all that and look at an Excel spreadsheet? Like, that's a lot.
It all builds. I will say I do less of a great job of it now than I have in the past. Maybe because I have better perspective. Yeah. Having kids definitely did a bunch of different things into my life that I'm grateful for. But it's like a level of perspective that like the business is so important and I love it so much. And the kids have just given me like a better worldview of like what family and community and things like that matter, and that like the numbers on the spreadsheet are really important, and it's also okay,
right?
Like because it has to be.
Yeah, of course.
Because it has to be. So there's like in the widening of life, it's also taught me to take for the things that I actually take really, really, really seriously, or used to take really seriously and live and die by, and get really worked up about. It's just taught me to be a little bit more like home baker kitchen me and less Christina's a pastry chef at work me. Yeah. And I'm grateful for that. And I think the rest is everything builds. It's honestly one day at a time. Like you stack it up. You do one good thing. You make one progress step every day and it builds. Nothing happens overnight. Yeah. And you just try to do your best and you try to surround yourself with great people and you try to make great decisions, and you're going to make bad decisions. And some people that you think are awesome, maybe less awesome, and then you just have to like figure out how to be kind to yourself along the way. But that's how anyone got to anywhere that they are, I think, in life.
That's a t-shirt. That's how anyone got to anywhere. This way, correct. No, I want to ask, when you eat your feelings,
Ooh.
What do you go for? And what do your feelings taste like?
Oh, it depends on how much time I have.
Right.
When I eat my feelings, it's really anything in the pantry or the freezer that is like naughty. So cookie dough. Like I'm not gonna say I'm not gonna eat a sleeve of Oreos, but I try not to keep them in the house because I just ate. You know what I mean? Like nothing's really left in the pantry when it's go time.
Go time.
So
You scream it out loud. And everyone
I
goes
love. I'll go like grocery shopping or like do an online order, and I start with curiosity where I'm like, what am I hungry for? And then I go, well, I do this for a living, so it can be professional research, and I'll order all of the best cookies or all the new stuff. What's going to be exciting, et cetera, et cetera. And then if none of them really like scratch the itch, because it has to really satiate for me. My favorite go-tos are I make like a bowl of what in my head I call homemade fudge, which is I take a bunch of chocolate chips, I put them into a little teacup, I melt them down, usually with like a tablespoon of peanut butter because that's just what I have. And it doesn't go chocolate peanut buttery all the way, but somehow peanut butter melts down really nicely with the chocolate chips. And then I add a little bit of vanilla extract and a pinch of salt and confectioner sugar. And a splash of milk. And if you stir it together fast enough and then you let it sit, it's basically like a hot fudge sauce, but it firms up. It's a little bit more voluptuous, like a warm fudge.
Ooh,
that's one of mine. But honestly, just break and bake cookie dough, warmed in the microwave for a second, eaten frozen. Like I'd say those are probably my two biggest go-tos. And if I'm feeling salty sweet, I'll melt white chocolate chips, mash up pretzels, and fold those together.
I love that even your salty sweet involves a sweet. Because I was thinking like with so many sweet things around, do you ever just like break and run screaming towards like a cheese plate?
No, never. Reese's peanut. I'm like going, but it goes in waves because it also depends on what's in my pantry.
Right.
But I go in waves. I'm like, I try not to keep anything in the house, but then of course I have all the baking ingredients. So
it's funny, we were upstairs and Christina walked in with like a half tub of chicken noodle soup, and I was like, "This is off-brand."
What are you
She's
doing?
Like finishing this, but then she said, "Don't worry," and she pulled out the tin of cookies from the backpack, and I was like, "Oh, thank God."
We've been eating sweets all day. I ate like 12 cookies in the kitchen, and I was like, I'm not hungry, and then I was like, I should probably be an adult before.
You just walk around spiked like all day.
It's coffee.
You're like a 3-year-old.
It's coffee to cookie, and then you just don't know what's gonna happen. That's kind of how it goes. Just don't know what's gonna happen.
I was curious about what you've eaten from other chefs or in other places of late that has really kind of done it for you.
Well, I just saw a familiar face in the crowd. Millie, can I embarrass you for a second? Chef Millie Peartree.
Oop.
Chef Millie was working on this idea for a sweet potato honey bun. And she was like, hey, can we go on like a walk and talk? Like, let's just catch up in life. She didn't tell me she was like bringing anything. And she brought, I don't know, 3 of them fried and 3 of them baked. And I'm just sitting in the park with her, talking about life, catching up, and looking at them and talking. And then I look around and I'm like, where did they all go? And I'm like, oh my God, I ate all of them. They're so insanely, amazingly delicious in a way that I'm like, when can we all get our hands on these honey buns, Chef Millie? Is my question, but she's going to be tight-lipped because you're going to know when you know. But follow her on Instagram because you'll know when they come out. That is one of my favorites. One of my favorite places to go hunting for dessert is Wild Air. They do a donut program on Saturdays, Lower East Side. And the guys that run it do just an incredible job of making an amazing donut and doing something different every week that's super duper inspired. Brooks at Superiority Burger has an incredible pastry team that is not to be missed, and they change their desserts very often.
This is solid.
I know. I'm trying to think of what my other current go-tos are. You're like, how are you eating that fudge and then eating cookies for?
No, I will never underestimate
when you love
your
bakeries, you love bakeries.
Never.
Kafar. Do y'all know about Kafar in Williamsburg, Brooklyn? It's part of the Hoxton Hotel.
Oh yeah.
Came from Philly. They have really, really inspired baked goods, sweet and savory. So you can be like overeat the sweet and then be like, I got to go back for the everything Bareka. I like bakeries that do a little salty and sweet together.
What's the greatest compliment you've received from another chef?
I think exactly.
They just blew their horn for you, honey.
I think the greatest compliment you can receive is like clean plate club, because as chefs you have access to any kind of food. When you lick your plate clean, you don't need words. Like it's all left on the plate. That's all you need to know. And if you're dining at a restaurant and you really like something, you can absolutely like clap and do whatever it is that you might do to like really cheer the chef on. But the best thing you can do is just clean it up with your silverware and then just get all the manners go out the window. That is the best compliment you could give, because we study the plates.
Yeah, what happens? So hang on, wait. This has got nothing to do with anything. But you know when you don't like something and you swirl it around. It never happened to you.
We're fooling no one.
When you swirl it around and you go, no, we did it. They all know.
Yeah, you hide it in your napkin. They know.
Oh God, it's so.
Because it's either clean or it's not, and if it's not, it's okay. It just means it needs more work, or it just wasn't for the person, and that's okay too.
And that's okay too. Okay, I'm going to fling it out for questions in a second. But you said you were working on this sort of potato bread. What else are you kind of dabbling in right now?
I was talking with the 92Y team. It sounds crazy, but have been really muffin obsessed lately. Which, like, muffins are like, they're the unsung hero of like the baking dessert world. You might even, when I say hero, you might even be like, really?
A blueberry muffin?
A hero? But like, when was the last time you had a corn muffin at a diner that was like buttered and griddled? Oh. Like, there's a quiet calmness about a muffin. Mm-hmm. Maybe how or when or where you enjoy a muffin. There's something there. And a great muffin is really hard to nail. There's a lot of really mediocre muffins. You're like my best nodder. I can't wait to meet you.
Mediocre muffins.
There's a great muffin is hard to find, and a great muffin is hard to nail. And that for me, I love that pursuit. There's a brown butter chocolate chip muffin in the cookbook that took me. You would think, you're gonna get it, right? It's one try, two tries, three tries. Yeah. I went at it so hard for so long. My kids are muffin obsessed because I'm muffin obsessed, and that's what they have to eat. That's like that's what's on offer for breakfast or what have you. But I'm muffin obsessed right now. I'm really in pumpkin land. Millie and I made a sweet potato, like honey bun inspired bar from the cookbook. I'm very much in the like, okay, and now what am I going to do that's pumpkin-y and pepperminty and.
Well, that's
what's on. I'm trying to think of what else is in my refrigerator right now. A lot of cheese, because I'm like dreaming in cheese.
Cheese does get a go.
I'm dreaming in cheese land too. So
that's good. I like
TBD on what's gonna come.
We're gonna pass it out to questions, but honestly, you're just of the people enthusiasm, open face sandwich. It makes such a difference.
Open face sandwich.
It makes such a difference in how people approach food and how they feel about being with people and eating it, and it really means a lot. So
thank you
for that. But I'm going to fling it to any questioners.
Oh my gosh! Also, think about your question for 1 second, because I also want to give one huge shout out. So, Constant Contact. If you're a member of Bake Club, we send you one email a week. It's a joyful email. It comes into your inbox on Sunday. It tells you what the basic ingredients are you're going to need to bake with us for the week, and we're not telling you what you're making because there's no opportunity to talk yourself in or out of. You're either in and you're all in, or maybe just come next week.
Get out.
But you get the ingredients. You get like the thing that we find joyful in the world. You get, we love to shout you out because to Laura's point, you were so inspiring in what you baked the week before online. You get a little butter update. And if it's your birthday, we tell you happy birthday. Also, because that's the same amount of time you should wash your hands before you're in the kitchen. Oh, but it's all brought to life by Constant Contact, which is like, that's what so much of Bake Club has been fueled by these past 4 years. They're also the reason you have these cute little zines on your chairs with a sneak peek into some of the recipes from the cookbook. And they're also one of the reasons that we get to go on tour. So if you have friends, I think we're going to Philly and DC this week. If you have friends on the West Coast, we're going there the following week, Boston, Chicago after Thanksgiving. And we'd love to see
Vegas.
You or any of your friends. Oh, Vegas. F1, vroom, vroom. Y'all, if they let me drive one of those cars, other fun fact, I'm a very aggressive driver. Y'all want to get in a bus? I will drive us through New York City and no one will take advantage of us.
Like, can you take me home?
Also Vegas, but we'd love to see
Tosi
you
at
out
the
on the
Sphere.
road. Yeah.
Whipping up
That's
the world's
it.
biggest bowl. Okay, there was this young lady over here. Oh, sorry, I need to repeat these for the live stream.
Yeah.
Sorry. Chef's Table versus Bake Club. Live stream. Hi, everyone. Comparing the experiences of the two, the fresh energy. Sorry, live streamers. Shout out. Yeah. Can you
Oh
make
my
a coffee
gosh.
cake muffin, please?
Oh my God, a coffee cake muffin's brilliant. We have a pumpkin coffee cake on the menu at Milk Bar right now, and it is. I see you.
Because she's crying.
It's funny. I think the origins of Milk Bar and the origins of Bake Club, you're right. They have the same spirit because it's the just start mentality. It's the like, here I am. I know what I'm doing and I don't know what I'm doing and I'm super comfortable with that. Like I'm just going at it with all my might. I'm giving it all my heart. And I think there are plenty of other things in life that I certainly do and approach that way. Sometimes people are watching, sometimes they're not watching. Sometimes, or said differently, maybe sometimes it sticks and sometimes it doesn't. But I love that fall. I love the fall. I'm super clumsy. I'm obviously very messy at home, as you heard, as a baker. I love. My mom is amazing. She's like the most enthusiastic mom. She's the mom that was always like, we got to take a picture as a kid. And then she took too long and it was really embarrassing. Or she always like put the picture of you up and you're like, I'm so embarrassed. So I had to learn for survival to be really humble at an early age and be able to just kind of not care and be able to laugh at myself. And so I think there's something about putting yourself out there in the world and free falling into it and being like, this feels right for me and this is who I am. And I guess that's kind of just the beginning and the end of it. We'll see where it goes. And you're spot on in the similarities of the origin. And man, what a joy it would be to get to have Bake Club going for 16 years. Cause this is Milk Bar turns 16 on, this is the 14th tomorrow. Wait. What? It's Friday. Friday's the 15th.
Congrats.
Which is crazy, but I love that. And I think that's anything in life. It's like sometimes you just have to start and throw as much of who you are truly into it with no expectation. Like the only expectation is your measure of like, did I do a good job today? Am I happy with what I did and my contribution? And that's it.
Yes, the question, which I will repeat. Yes.
Good question.
Big, huge question here. Milk powder, guys. Milk powder.
Laura was so waiting for these baking questions.
Because I know nothing. When she said leavening, and I was like, levity? No. Milk powder, thoughts and also options that are not dairy.
So milk powder, we use it in like professional pastry kitchens normally when we're making ice cream for reasons that I won't, boring, dorky ice cream reasons that you can meet me later if you want to talk about. What I found, because it was like a staple pantry ingredient in professional kitchens, was I just started putting it in other things, kind of similar to like the cookie adventure of like, what if? I don't know. And when I started putting it into cookies, it did this amazing thing. I call it the MSG for bakers, whether people enjoy that analogy or not. It makes everything that you put it in sharper and rounder in flavor. It gives it an incredible depth of flavor to all of your sweet baked goods. I'm guessing it also gives it a cool chew, which I love. I'm guessing, though, by your question, I'm not going to sing its praises because maybe we're dairy-free in your household. And you're like, I don't want to hear it. I want to hear what I can do instead of that for milk powder. One, you can omit milk powder. Like, it's really a little bit more chew, a little bit of a depth of flavor. If you're making cookies, if you're making like chocolate chip cookies and you want them to be chewier, you can do a few different things. There is this cool, they're like broken down pieces of thin crepe called fouilletine that I have found. That's the only thing that I have found that makes really great chewy chocolate chip cookies without milk powder. There's also, you can Google coconut milk powder and you can get the same thing and it will do something similar. It makes it just a little bit more fatty, a little bit more unctuous, a little bit deeper of a flavor, but it's totally optional. You can also just omit the milk powder because if it's not for you, it's not for you.
Oh, somebody used the word unctuous.
Unctuous. You're a writer. I mean, I had to like show up a little bit with a vocab.
Thrilled me. golly. That's why she is fancy.
Wait, can I ask a question?
Yes. Can I help you?
So Laura Brown
I'm gonna
is an
gesticulate.
incredible. She has been so generous with her time tonight. I'm such a fan of hers. In all of the ways that she sees the world and shows up, and she has this really cool project that she's been working on that I want her to tell you about,
come on now.
because I think it's so fun, and it's just as empowering and exciting for me. And I also think it's just so fun and funny. And I walk around, and sometimes when I'm feeling a little down or a little unsure, and I think just the way, even just the title of it helps put into perspective a lot of great things.
This is going for 10 seconds because this is your night. But one thing that I love about Christina is community. I am very fond of that myself. Me and my friend Christina O'Neill are writing a book called All the Cool Girls Get Fired. It's about getting fired and owning it, and it has nothing to do with you. It is about moving on with your life and going from the sandpit of whatever job you're in to the beach of opportunity in the rest of your life. So
we need that energy in life, right?
Yeah, when Christina pinged me to do
pre-order
this-
your book, and there's going to be a
yeah.
podcast.
There's going to be a podcast, and I'm going to make cookies, God willing. But no, when Christina asked me to do this, she was like, number one, when's your book out? And I was like,
I want to
still
read
going.
this book so
And then she was
bad.
like, do you want to do this thing at the Y? And but I think what's really, really important is anybody in any sphere to bring everybody along with you, and in the good and the bad experiences, and own everything that happens to you experience-wise, be it in a kitchen, be it in an office, be it anywhere else. So thank you for that. And that's a little while away, so back to you.
No, I didn't.
See, I didn't even repeat that. Oh, no, you heard the question.
It's out
Yes,
loud.
there's the you're going to make the
My
muffins,
muffin gal.
the muffin gal.
Where did you have a great, out of your own kitchen, you had a great muffin?
Oh, well
yeah,
done.
girl. She got it. We're celebrating muffin victories in the crowd.
It's just such a great word. Questions about role models. I think maybe they can be heard, but I'll just say, who are your role models?
It's a good question. You know, it's a really good question. It's one of those questions that makes you go, one of my favorite quotes about growing a business came from a gentleman who was my husband's mentor and boss growing up, who became the CEO of Shake Shack, who actually just retired. And his mentality that he built into Shake Shack was, the bigger we get, the smaller we act. And this idea of, I think it's so easy to chase this idea of building a big business, and then it's big and it's bigger and it's bigger and it's bigger. And a few things that I've learned about that are, bigger isn't always better. Sometimes it's better. Sometimes it's not better. Like, why are you building bigger? What's the pressure to more of anything in life? We'll use business as the reference point here. And I think making sure you're like bachelorette, like in it for the right reasons, here for the right reasons, is important. But I also think that on the way up, as you grow, you, business or otherwise, there are all of these pressures or all of these talk tracks of things that you think you're meant to do and be. And what I find in that, and the reason I always reference it, because I use it at work, but I also use it as just a human in the world, I find myself just wanting less on a bunch of different levels. And I find myself retreating to the simplicity of a muffin, or like one of my role models is just hanging out with my kids, because my husband and I were joking, like they're 1.5 and 3.5. And they're at this age, this beautiful age in life where they don't, my 3.5-year-old doesn't care what anyone thinks about her. And it is the outfits that she puts on in the morning, the way she walks through the world, what she thinks is appropriate for breakfast, when she thinks bedtime is. Like, it's all who she says hi to at the airport. Like, how she sees the world is this beautiful, filterless, joyful, giving experience. And she's at an age where we're like, how do we protect as much of that? Because then all of a sudden she's about to hit this downhill slope of not caring, really, really, really caring. And then in life, I think at some point you get older. My grandmas were like this because they were some of my biggest mentors, especially when I was a teenager. You start to slope back up to not caring, and not caring out of indifference, just being like, I am who I am and I'm good enough and that's great. And I just want to give and be a good person and walk through the world. And so those are like my two mentors, the really youngs and then the ones that have started the uphill slope of like, the bigger we get, the smaller we act, or the like, how do I care so much that not caring is a really important way to like think about and walk through life. Building business, like what are the things that really matter? I think that's
wise. That's bloody wise. I think that's going to be, unless there's one quickie, but no, I think we're going to finish up because the books need to be signed and bought and things need to be baked. And this one was like,
We've got a lot of baking
bake a
to do
thing. And I
tonight,
was like, my
Laura.
God, she's insatiable. Anyway, thank you.
You're the best.
Congratulations.
Thank you
Christina.
for thank you for tonight. Thanks everybody.